Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner. This is the big one-day race, Tour of Flanders, one of the 5 monuments, the greatest one-day bike races in the world. It is going to be an epic show. Wout van Aert, you all know by this point in time that he's out. Sick, won't start, so Jumbo-Visma are going to be under squad, missing the #1 ranked one-day rider, best one-day rider in the world. What I believe anyways, he's out. So Jumbo-Visma are understaffed here when it comes to powerful riders. They're left with Christophe Laporte and Thies Benoot and Van Hooijdonk as their strongest riders on the team now, which will change the chemistry throughout the racing today. Now at 273 kilometers, 18 bergs on today's famous Tour of Flanders course. It is going to be a hard edition, and at 250 kilometers to go, it's Tadej Pogacar that hits the deck. The world-ranked #1 rider in the world is down 25 kilometers into today's race. Luckily, it looks like he's not hurt. He gets back up on the bike. During that time, a group of 9 riders go up the road, and they'll get about 4.5 minute gap on the lead peloton back there by all the big GC favorites. It's UAE Team Emirates riding, FDJ's riding, Quick-Step's got riders on the front, Alpecin Phoenix has riders on the front. Jumbo-Visma have riders on the front. So when you got 5 big teams back there chasing 9 guys up front, it doesn't matter who the group is of 9 because they're not going to factor in today's Tour of Flanders whatsoever. So I'm not even going to mention them. Now with about 160 kilometers to go in the race, that's when we start seeing some sparks and some action start to happen. And it's Quick-Step at the front. They're looking like the wolf pack again at today's early start here at Tour of Flanders. They're all over the front. They've been riding the front, and now they're getting ready to bring Asgreen into the first difficult cobblestone sections here at Tour of Flanders. At this moment, Quick-Step look absolutely fantastic, and they have been a strong force throughout the early part here of Tour of Flanders. Now, when we get into just under 100 kilometers to go, this is when the action really starts to take off, as it's Van Hooijdonk and Jonas Koks that breaks away from the peloton. This is the first attack from the favorites back there in the peloton, and at just under 90 kilometers to go, I'm here to tell you it's a bit early, guys, but okay, you're going to put in a move. Remember, the break is still 3.5 minutes up the road at this point in time, and it's a group of 9. So 2 guys, one from Jumbo-Visma, and of course, Bora Hansgrohe, Jonas there, they're going to start lighting this race up. Now, that's not so much of a problem when you're talking about the big favorites behind, like UAE Team Emirates, Tadej Pogacar, and of course, Mathieu van der Poel from Alpecin Phoenix. Those riders stay calm. It's with about 90 kilometers to go that a big break of big-time hitters go up the road. 11 riders will go up the road, and we're talking Quick-Step riders, Jumbo-Visma riders. Alpecin Phoenix is represented in there with Gianni Maresh. So all the big teams are up there, but UAE Team Emirates missed the move. Now, this is what I really want to talk about, because there's still big teams back there chasing, right? UAE Team Emirates is on the front. Total Energies is on the front. Bahrain Victorious is on the front. And I brought up this Lupus jersey just to add into the story here, and I'm going to bring that up shortly. But with 80 kilometers to go, it's Christophe Laporte, Jumbo-Visma, that crashes. That's one of their big hitters. Now Jumbo-Visma are in big trouble because they started already without Wout van Aert. Now they're losing Christophe Laporte to a crash, and he will find his way back on, but it's not going to be a big-time player here at Tour of Flanders. When the next climb starts with about 75 kilometers to go, it's Matteo Trentin that goes on the attack. UAE Team Emirates. Tadej Pogacar, world #1 ranked rider in the world, 2-time Tour de France. He is their leader, and they're letting Matteo Trentin go up the road. This is a catastrophic mistake. The first really big mistake that Tadej Pogacar's UAE Team Emirates team make on today's race. This is why I brought up the jersey here from Lupus, because I was riding with Lupus. We were doing Tour of Beauce in 2016. I was the captain of the team, not the leader. Chad Beyer was the leader here at Beauce when I was there with Lupus. Our job was to get Bayer to the start of the last climb. It was a summit finish. There was a massive break, 15, 20 guys up the road, powerful break. My whole team's on the front with 2 or 3 other teams. Just the exact same scenario that UAE Team Emirates are living at this point in time before Matteo Trentin attacks. The reason I want to compare this moment at Tour of Flanders and Tour of Beauce in 2016 is because that group's the same size, because we're still chasing, because it's an undermanned team back there chasing, same as it is here in Tour of Beauce. UAE Team Emirates do not have a spectacular team here to look after Tadej Pogacar, so they can't afford to make mistakes. Now, what do? Trentin goes on to the attack and tries to bridge the gap. That's a mistake. In Tour of Beauce, what happened, my teammates tried to pull that break back. I rode up to them, and there's 2 other teams on the front, and I rode up to those guys, and I said, what are you guys doing? You're pulling full gas at 100%. They said, yes, we want to catch the break. I said, no, wait, guys. Your job is not to catch the break with 60 kilometers or 70 kilometers to go. Your job is to catch the break at the bottom of the last climb so Chad Bayer can light it up the climb. We don't want to catch the break early and then just have a bunch of attacks again. So what does UAE Team Emirates do today here at Tour of Flanders? Well, Matteo Trentin lights it up like I told you. He can't bridge the gap. Now when they go over the climb, Tadej Pogacar is there with a group of 40 and he has 13, 15 riders up the road of favorites, plus another 9 from the original break in front of that. What is Tadej Pogacar going to do, Matteo Trentin, even if you bridge the gap up to the front group up there? What do you expect the Tour de France champion to do when he's outnumbered 25, 30 to 1 or 50 to 1? It's impossible at that point in time to bring the move back. If you're UAE Team Emirates, you should have never panicked. You should have kept it steady. You have Total Energy ride. You have Bahrain Victorious ride. You have your own team on the front that you can rely on. That's 3 teams to chase. Yes, in the front group, it's a group of favorites up there. I don't doubt that. With Quick Step up there, Jumbo-Visma represented up there. It's a dangerous move, but it's too late to bring it back. You already missed the move. Now you just want to bring it back at the crucial finish part of this race was, let's call it 30 kilometers to go, something near the finish. So Tadej Pogacar, when everybody's legs have 230, 240 kilometers of distance in their legs, then when Tadej Pogacar lights it up, he can go away and do some damage. Instead, what happens? Trentin can't bring it back. It's Pogacar talking on the radio in a group of 40 when there's still 15 plus another group of that are more than a minute up the road. Tadej Pogacar did the wise thing. He hit the abort button, got on the radio, they slowed the pace down. UAE Team Emirates came back to the front with 2 more guys. Plus, guess what? Bahrain Victorious Road 2. Plus, Total Energies. The exact same scenario they had before Matteo Trentin decided to do that ridiculous attack. Now, one other thing I'm going to throw out to you guys at this moment in time. When you're looking at that group of 13 and 15 up the road of big-time favorites, remember there is Alpecin Phoenix rider in there, Gianni Vermeersch. He rides, of course, for Mathieu van der Poel, Alpecin Phoenix. #1 favorite here at today's Tour of Flanders. So you know if there's a panic back there, there's no way Alpecin Phoenix want Gianni Vermeersch going all the way to the finish with a 15, 30-man group up there instead of bringing it back for Mathieu van der Poel to have a chance at winning today's race. Now, luckily, like I said, Tadej Pogacar hits the abort button. Those teams get to the front. Everything starts going back to status quo as you have 3 teams chasing, a 1-minute gap of favorites up there with just the group of 9 in front. But like I said, that original group of 9 won't factor in today's race. With 55 kilometers to go, it's the old Kwaremont that begins, and it's Tadej Pogacar's time to go to work. He gets on the pedals, lights the afterburners, and he is flying through the group. He catches the group of 16 in front, and he's going by them like we're on a ski course here. just flying by the group with only Casper Asgreen locked onto his wheel. Casper Asgreen, my number 3 pick here at Tour of Flanders, looks like he's got some form. He's locked onto the Tour de France champ's wheel as the Tour de France rider drops the 16 that were in the break right in front, bridges up to what's the left of the original 9, with Taco van der Hoorn being the last rider to hold off Tadej Pogacar's surge, but he can't hang on. Over the top of the Kwaremont, it's chaos back there. You see in the pictures, it's 5-6 different groups of echelons, all trying to catch the Tour de France champion who lit the afterburners and blew this race up with 55 kilometers to go. Now, I want to say one other thing when we're talking tactics. I'm sitting on the couch, 55 kilometers to go. I'm thinking, this is still a bit too early, Tadej Pogacar. There's still too many people left in this race. But when his whole UAE team Emirates have been destroyed throughout the early parts here at Tour of Flanders, trying to chase that original group of 11 that went up the road, that I got to believe in his mind the only thing he's thinking is I better light this race up, try to reduce the numbers, and hope I can be a big-time factor in today's Tour of Flanders. He is, as the group comes back together, it's small in size, but there's still Quick-Step in there, and they're represented with 4 or 5 guys in that group. So Quick-Step's having a marvelous day still at this point in time at Tour of Flanders with just under 55 kilometers to go. With 46 kilometers to go, it's Ineos Dylan van Baarle that throws in an attack. He's got company with Bahrain victorious Fred Wright there. Those 2 riders will get a little bit of a gap on the GC-led peloton behind of Tadej Pogacar and Mathieu van der Poel. But when the next climb comes up, it's time to go to work for Tadej Pogacar for the 3rd or 4th time today in Tour of Flanders as he lights it up. When he does, this time Mathieu van der Poel is able to stick on his wheel along with FDJ, Valentin Madouas. Those 3 riders will bridge up to the 2 to make it a group of 5 up there. And to my disbelief, and this is a catastrophic mistake, the 3 riders up front, Fred Wright, Dylan van Baarle, Valentin Madouas, they're coming through and taking a pull. With my number 1 pick, Tadej Pogacar, and my number 2 pick, Mathieu van der Poel here at Tour of Flanders, those 3 riders are going to come through and take continuous pulls with 2 legends of the sport and 2 guys' resume that's absolutely stellar. When you look at Fred Wright's resume, it's pretty bleak. When you look at Dylan van Baarle's resume, it's nice, but it's not up there with Mathieu van der Poel. Valentin Madouas, FDJ, he had a great ride a few days ago, sticking on Tadej Pogacar's wheel, but that was when Tadej Pogacar done massive work. Now you're looking at this group of 5, and when I'm sitting on the couch, I'm thinking, what are you 3 knuckleheads doing? Pulling through with Tadej Pogacar and with Mathieu van der Poel. That is ridiculous. On top of that, if that wasn't enough evidence there to not come through and take a pull, when we look at the group behind, FDJ has teammates back there. Bahrain Victorious has teammates back there. Ineos have teammates back there. And you guys are pulling with 2 legends up front. Absolutely knuckleheadism at its best right here at Tour of Flanders, and that's why the racing has been spectacular all the way from 100 kilometers to the finish of today's race, because there's still some more action left. 23 kilometers to go. It's Benoot, Stefan Kuhn, and Dylan Teuns from Bahrain Victorious who are trying to bridge up to the 5 leaders. They broke away from the group behind with multiple attacks happening. Now, if I left some attacks out, guys, to be clear, you have to watch from 100 kilometers because I left out 1,000 attacks. It was happening throughout the day. This is just the highlights. Those 3 riders are trying to catch the leaders. When the favorites up front start the Old Kwaremont for the 3rd and final time here at Tour of Flanders, guess what? It's Tadej Pogacar again throwing in a massive attack. We're going to see Fred Wright come off. Dylan van Baarle comes off. Madouas, FDJ, he'll come off too. And just 2 riders will crest Old Kwaremont. It's the 2 legends, 1 and 2 favorite picks here at Tour of Flanders. Tadej Pogacar and Mathieu van der Poel are locked on each other's wheel. And now the 2 have dropped all of the competition here at Tour of Flanders. And they're going up the road, putting gap on all the big favorites behind. Now, when the Patersburg starts, the last and final climb of today's Tour of Flanders, it's Tadej Pogacar putting in a massive dig. It looks like for a brief moment, Mathieu van der Poel drops and starts to lose the gap of the Tour de France champion. He'll dig deep, find his way quickly back on the Tadej Pogacar's wheel, and the 2 will go over the last climb to Patersburg. locked onto each other, now doing pull for pull all the way into about 1 kilometer to go. The problem for our two leaders, it's Dylan Van Baarle and Valentin Madouas, FDJ. They never quit fighting. When they went over the Paderberg, that time gap of about 30 seconds to our front two leaders has now been reduced to about 20-25 seconds with about 5K to go. And under 1K to go, when it's Tadej Pogacar who stopped pulling, getting Mathieu van der Poel in the front position so he could keep an eye on him and have a shot at coming from the back. But with two leaders behind chasing as fast as they can, that gap is shrinking, and we'll see Mathieu van der Poel, Tadej Pogacar, both looking back to see how much of a game space they have to be able to win here at Tour of Flanders. Now with 500 meters to go, both the two leaders are still looking back. With 250 meters to go, Mathieu van der Poel will start his sprint. The problem is Valentin Madouas, FDJ, had started his sprint at about 275 meters. Now when Mathieu van der Poel starts his acceleration, the FDJ rider comes up the right side of Tadej Pogacar. On the left side is Dylan Van Baarle, Ineos, and those two will squeeze off Tadej Pogacar as Mathieu van der Poel hits the accelerator button and just cruises through to win in amazing fashion here at Tour of Flanders. Take a fine victory behind in second place. It's Ineos rider Dylan Van Baarle for second. Valentin Madouas held on for third. Tadej Pogacar, who raised his hands in disbelief with about 30 meters to go, just absolutely frustrated at losing any shot at a win here at Tour of Flanders. Now the commentators, Robbie McEwen, I was listening to him at the end here at Tour of Flanders, and he said Tadej Pogacar had done everything right and then had done it wrong at the finish. I think just the opposite of Robbie McEwen. I think they did everything wrong, and then with 1K to go, when you're with Mathieu van der Poel, the only option is to sit on his wheel. If he jumps early, he's going to get second. If he does everything perfect, he possibly will still get second anyways because it's Mathieu van der Poel. So there really wasn't a correct way to beat Mathieu van der Poel here unless you just had stellar legs. But in my book, when UAE Team Emirates and Tadej Pogacar made all those small mistakes that became catastrophic mistakes and bigger throughout this Tour of Flanders, there really wasn't a shot at the win. So I disagree with Robbie McEwen's belief that they did everything right and then did it wrong here in the last K. I think it was just the opposite. Tadej Pogacar did everything he could in the last K to give himself a legitimate shot of beating Mathieu van der Poel here at Tour of Flanders. It just wasn't going to happen because Mathieu van der Poel has that much speed. But then when you look at how the two riders behind, Ineos, Dylan Van Baarle, and Valentin Madouas, both squeezed off Tadej Pogacar, he lost any shot here at second, but fourth or second for a two-time Tour de France champion. And for a rider who's already won two epic monuments in Liège-Bastogne-Liège and Tour of Lombardy, getting second or getting fourth at Tour of Flanders is no different in my book. If I got to pull out mistakes, it's all the way back there when UAE Team Emirates should have just left that group out there to fry for a lot longer and launched Tadej Pogacar the last time up the old Kwaremont followed by the Paderberg. That would have been the ideal scenario in my book, but they chose to panic and bring that group back much too early for Tadej Pogacar. Then he had to be aggressive throughout today's Tour of Flanders, which left Mathieu van der Poel, who rode a fantastic race. I only saw one mistake out of Mathieu van der Poel, and that was when Tadej Pogacar launched on Old Kwaremont for the second time, and Mathieu van der Poel had to close big-time gaps to get back up to the Tour de France champion's wheel. He did that, never opened the gap up again on Tadej Pogacar, and then blitzed the sprint here to win Tour of Flanders for a second time. Congratulations, Mathieu van der Poel and Alpecin Phoenix. That was a fabulous example of perfect tactics throughout today's Tour of Flanders. UAE Team Emirates, you guys failed miserably. Tadej Pogacar, you were brilliant in terms of form, but the tactics leave something less to be desired, and multiple other teams back there. Quick-Step, now, they looked fantastic throughout today's race, but when Asgreen had the mechanical on the climb, that took out their best and strongest rider, and from that point on, Quick-Step just fell apart throughout the finish of today's Tour of Flanders race. The last team I'd like to bring up, Jumbo-Visma, they started with bad luck with Wout van Aert out. It ended up being magnified when Christophe Laporte crashed. They did okay to get riders into the top 10 on today's race. It's about where I had them placed at when we're talking about my top picks here at Tour of Flanders. It was a great day of racing and exciting all the way from 100 kilometers to the finish of today's Tour of Flanders. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Make sure you guys remember the tactics, you young pros. Remember, you never bring back the big break with 70 kilometers still to go in the race unless you got a team that could ride the front still for another 40K. Always leave that group out there for as long as possible. Catch them at the most important and crucial moment of the race. And if Tadej Pogacar's UAE Team Emirates had followed that script, Tadej Pogacar probably would have soloed in on today's Tour of Flanders because his legs were something spectacular, but the tactics were something horrendous. So, 4th place isn't that bad, Tadej Pogacar. Don't worry too much. You know you're going to be back at the next races winning big time. Make sure you guys like and subscribe to The Butterfly Effect, and I'll see you guys on the next edition.